So, Jordan, how
Yes.
would you feel if someone was talking about you and they were describing your job, and then they said that you were called a handy? That is your
A
role.
handy?
Yes.
How did I miss this?
Okay, I don't know because I expected you to be like WTF and to get a text about it.
Who was the handy?
I don't
I
even remember.
can't even say that.
Right? I don't even remember her name or their name, but she's in there for a brief moment, and she's talking about how her dad was like in maintenance, basically, like
Like a handyman.
like a handyman, and fixed things around the castle for the princess and the king and the queen, and his name they were called a handy.
Tell me how that doesn't
Handy.
change the context of handyman.
I know now. If you ever hear the term handyman, you're totally gonna think of like, there's a handy.
Like, what kind of hand?
Yeah.
I just want to know what service I'm signing up for.
Right. Actually, okay, so this is so funny. We saw Beetlejuice 2, no spoilers, but Lydia Dietz's stepmom, I can't even think of her name. It's Moira, but that's not her name in the movie. Moira from Schitt's Creek.
Yeah.
But she talks about
Catherine O'Hare.
Catherine O'Hare, thank you. I don't remember her character's name though. It's Delia Dietz. Delia Dietz. She's explaining people, and she's like, "This is my stepdaughter Lydia Dietz, yada yada yada, and this is my husband, my handyman." But she doesn't say she doesn't say husband. She says, "This is my handyman." Like that's how she describes him.
Imagine the ick of everyone around you. If
Oh,
you
I
said that out
know.
loud. You would
So
just be like,
uncomfy.
ugh. Like if somebody introduced somebody that way to me, I would be like, handshake's not necessary.
Brother,
You've set some bars up.
right? Like, no, I'm not. Yeah. So I was just cracking up so much in the book when she literally was like, "Yeah, we're the handy," and I was like, "Excuse
That's
me."
hilarious.
I have another point that I wrote down that I could not wait to talk to you about in this book. Blonde boy never wins. He's gonna try. He's gonna try. He's gonna try, and he will not succeed.
Oh, it was kind of sad too because, like, as it was setting up, it was like I felt like it was the tee-up of a love triangle, but where none of the characters except for one character felt like it was a love triangle.
Right.
But all of the bad, all of the signs were there, right? Like if you remove yourself from the situation, like, girl be sending mixed signals.
Oh my gosh. Oh, we got to get into that.
Okay, let's.
So frustrated. All right. Let's say who we are, what we're reading.
Let's Taylor Swift eras dive in. I'm never going to not make that joke.
I know. And every time you do, I do something very wrong and not what it actually is. It's not the, are you ready for it? I'd go in a very different direction. Every time.
I'm talking about when she actually dives under the stage.
Oh my God, I don't know what you're talking about.
Are you kidding me? You've just been fake laughing at this joke for episodes.
No, I thought you meant we're diving into Are You Ready for It?
No, so in the Eras tour, there's a scene where in between sets, I can't remember what set. I think it's after the acoustic set. Ooh. She the stage turns into looking like water, and she literally dives into it and goes under the stage and does an outfit change and comes back out.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing! I had no idea that was not in the Eras movie we watched.
Yes, it was.
It was not.
You're being the worst Swiftie ever right now. Honestly, I'm embarrassed. Give me your Taylor Swift back.
Yeah.
I had something over right now.
Still a Swiftie. I'll have to go rewatch that. That's just a good reason to go rewatch that.
Yeah, it's a good transition, I think.
I think that's really cool, and that's amazing.
I wouldn't do it.
No, probably not for me either. But I would belly flop that water. I'm sure she did it really gracefully. I'm sure
there's not real water. Oh my God. We're debating nothing here. Let's keep going.
Okay, let's move on. All right, let's move on. Okay.
Watch it. We'll circle back.
Sounds like a good plan.
Okay. So I'm Jordan.
And I'm Sheridan.
And together we're Sippin on Spice podcast.
And once a week, Jordan and I get together and we treat these like a girls' night, and we're going to discuss a book that we've recently read.
Yep. And we rate everything on a star scale as well as a penny scale, and we get a little unhinged, so definitely grab a beverage.
Yes. And this week, we're going to be discussing Powerless by Lauren Roberts.
Yes, the BookTok sensation.
Yes, the super popular.
Okay, so I actually want to start this off before we even dive into details about how surprised I was about something, and I don't want to talk about it in a spoilery way because I'm going to compare it to another book that way in case somebody else hasn't read it, right? And it's that I went into Lightlark with mindset, okay, I'm going to be disappointed, right? And ended up being blown away by the book. I felt like I walked into this book being prepared to be blown away, and I am still waiting. There is nigh a draft.
80 years later.
I wanted a Beyonce wind, and I'm getting like a light fan handheld at best.
That is so funny. No, agreed. I wrote down multiple times, and let me tell you, I felt guilty and bad writing this down. I wrote down multiple times, I'm just bored.
Yes. Okay.
I'm just, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. I think, I imagine. I imagine that this is the kind of book that maybe people started with, or, you know what I mean? And it holds a place in their heart in a way that, for example, Twilight might for us, right? If I were to read that for the first time now, I'd be like, what are we doing? First of all, stop looking out your window. You know what I mean?
Imagine doing a Twilight reread anyways. Yes. Ideas.
You have moved me.
I'm writing this now. I'm scribing.
Scribe that because I'm
interested.
Yes. I just think that I can see why people like it, but I think my reoccurring thought was actually also a Taylor Swift lyric, which is, I think I've seen this film before. And I didn't like the ending.
Same. I love that you made that joke, because that's amazing, because that is so true. I was like, okay, this is a little formulaic. This is a little predictable.
Which is fine sometimes, right?
Yeah. It is fine sometimes. I think this book is not bad, but I think we just had mixed feelings. We have mid feelings, maybe, to use the hip young slangs of the youth. This book is a little mid.
She says mid and then immediately ages herself.
Yeah.
They're mid.
I want to accurately represent what generation I am from. So, because I think that I really struggled with multiple parts, but then there are standout parts that I did write down that I loved.
Yeah. And I think that was it. It was almost like I thought it was going to be like the world building, because I even felt like in ACOTAR, like the first 50% of ACOTAR, like the first book, I did feel like, why am I reading this, right? Mm-hmm. And then the tides changed, right? And then I became really invested in the story. So I felt like I kept being like, okay, let's do this. Let's go. And I think it took me until like 80% through to feel invested in what's going to happen. And I feel like now me reading Reckless is literally just because I dedicated this time to reading Powerless.
Right. And I do have to know how they're walking into is going to end. Like, I need to know with what's been set up. Okay. As we speak about this, should we do a quick synopsis of the book in general?
Would you like the honors?
I would love the honors. So it is a fantasy romance, obviously, and basically high level, it's a kingdom where there are those that have basically had a plague, and they are now ordinaries. They have no power. And then there are the elites that have some form of power of some kind. And
that they got from the sickness.
Yes.
From surviving the sickness.
From surviving.
A lot of people died.
Very sad plague trauma.
It was awful, really.
It was. And the king is an elite, and he has two sons that are half brothers technically, but he has two sons, and they are the future princes. One is going to be the future king, and he is described as the really charming, easygoing one. And then the other brother is going to be the enforcer. Basically, he's his father's hired, goes out there. And his main thing to do is to go and find ordinaries that don't have powers, because the king does not want ordinaries to be alive because he views them as a threat to his power as an elite.
Yep. And he sells it as like a sickness to the people pretty much, and says like, oh, they're going to make us sick and infect us. And he also kind of implies that the existence of ordinaries means that over time, the elites will essentially be filtered out. Like, I almost feel like what they were implying, but I don't feel like they ever truly said, was like, as the ordinaries and the elites marry and have children,
Yeah.
you're likely to have more ordinaries. I think that's actually the root of it, but nobody ever really says that. They talk about this quote unquote sickness and losing their power.
I agree. I think that is like subversively in there because I was thinking that too. It's almost like getting into really dark, creepy things. But yeah, no, that that's what the king wanted. And then we have our female lead, Hayden, who we can just talk about. So yeah, she's an ordinary, but she masks as a psychic, saying she's a psychic because it's a power that she doesn't have to perform, so she can kind of hide that she's an ordinary. And what does Hayden do, Jordan?
Hayden uses her keen observation skills essentially to be the reasoning behind why people believe that she's a psychic, because she's able to use those and translate it into guesses essentially about their lives. Now, she lives on Loot Alley as a homeless person, literally lives in a pile of trash. Mm-hmm. And her father had been by, to her knowledge, the king when she was a child. And she essentially had to live in the streets and pretend that she had a power so that she wouldn't be killed.
Yep. And then one fateful day, she walks up on a silencer, someone who can take the elite's powers away, basically beating the crap out of the son who's the enforcer, Kai.
She thrifts from Kai first.
She does. She steals from him. How could I forget that? Okay, so she steals from him. Good point. Don't want to miss that. And they have a deliciously little tense interaction. Yeah. Like
he thinks they're just having like a hot moment down Loot Street. And she's like, pretty boy, thanks for the coin.
I'm stealing from you now. And then she goes away. She's like, I'm so happy with myself. I have all these plans. And then with this money, and then she walks in on him being like beat to death basically by this silencer. And she saves him from the silencer.
Yep, because the silencer pretty much like creates this, I guess, insane pressure in your head, but it only works if you also have a power, and she be ordinary.
She'd be ordinary.
she's just every other girl.
Also, spoiler alert, it wasn't the king, but we'll get into that later. The king did not kill her dad. We'll talk about that at the end. Also, like we said a little bit earlier, I feel like now is an appropriate time to get into this. She kind of plays multiple fields with the brothers. She kind of, she is interesting.
Well, so she essentially gets taken into this Hunger Games-esque thing. Mm-hmm. Her name gets drawn, so to speak, for her district of loot.
I love that it's called Loot. Because she's like a great thief and
Loot Alley. It's cool. Kind of like, side note, it's kind of like one of the major reasons I had a hard time getting into the Lucy Score series, like the things we never got over and all that, is because the town is called Knock 'em Out.
What?
Yeah.
Knock them out.
Because they used to fight a lot.
Oh my goodness.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's a little too on the nose.
It is.
Same with Loot Alley. But whatever, right? You get looted.
Yeah.
So she gets drawn into this competition, which is very Hunger Game-esque, except for there's not an intended one survivor sort of thing, but it is intended that the non-elites die. Mm-hmm. So she kind of starts bonding with these princes throughout her time at the castle competing.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And so as she starts to go through her trials, just really high level until we get to all the dun parts later, she definitely forms a bond and a lot of banter and closeness over time. It's definitely not enemies yet, but like animosity. But you always know they're flirting with Kai. They're not really enemies to lovers yet because, they're kind of, what would you call this? Like flirtatious animosity.
Yeah, I don't even think there's really like that. Like, Here's where I struggle with this kind of animosity, right? It's hard for me to put my finger on it because all it is that she is upset about obviously how her life has gone, right? Mm-hmm. So from her end, there's animosity. From his end, he's like, we just goofing, pal.
Right? Like, and I did write this down. To me, this is a positive part. Like, he's pretty much a goner from the beginning. Like, he doesn't want to admit it, but he's got it down bad very quickly for her.
Yeah, it's definitely he falls first and hard. So that's why it's like, it's not enemies to lovers to me because it's not, the animosity is really only going in one direction.
True. Only her-sided. That's very true. Mm-hmm. I also want to talk about how she kind of plays both brothers. Like, she definitely plays the field a little bit. How do we want to say this?
Okay, so I think, in my opinion, she, even before the rebellion approaches her, right? Because later on she gets approached by the rebellion to essentially get information out of Kit using this friendship. I think even leading up to that, she's sending very mixed signals. But like in her mind, the attraction is between her and Kai.
Yes.
But and in Kai's mind, even the attraction is between her and him. But it's like Kit never got the memo, and she had no desire to send him the memo.
Or clear anything up. And it's a little more insidious than that, I would say, because she never outright says, oh, I know Kit has feelings for me, but she does use him. She does purposely say multiple times she's playing a role to get his trust so that she can manipulate him. And that is even before she meets the rebellion, because she even meets the rebellion. We even get that timeline after half of the book. Like, it's more than half of the book.
It's like 60%, I'd say, at least.
Yeah. So even before then, she's like, I have to play the part, and maybe that's for the trials.
It's just about her coming across as not ordinary. She gets to be the person that they think she is, because you have to think she's trying to pretend she's not ordinary this whole time.
True. That's a valid point.
When she's saying play the part, she's like, get in, get out. Your girl's trying to get out of this alive.
She does say her only goal is to survive. Yeah. So that's absolutely true. But then after she does meet the rebellion, we find out that her dad pretty much was a founding member of the rebellion against the king. And they tell her that. And then they're like, they also read her mind to make sure that she's being sincere, but they want help from her. They want her to get close to Kit, that prince, and find out where a tunnel into the palace is.
Yeah. So I think she's trying to excuse it as like a friendship. Like,
I
thought we were just friends. No one else thought that.
No. But I will say, another good part of this book, I did absolutely love when Kai was jealous. Those scenes I enjoyed reading those.
Oh, yeah. But it was almost like kind of sad, because they're like kind of best friends. Like, why is nobody chatting about the elephant in the room?
Right. Why did either one of them go? I mean, they kind of do, but they also really don't say like, hey, I like this girl. I have feelings for her. I'm flirting with her. They never discuss it outright. And then even when Kit brings up, he asks some like pointed questions, Kai does not take the opportunity to explain anything or say anything.
No. It's just, it's strange, because to me, it's like from the outside, very obvious, from every single corner, right? Very obvious. But it's like, no one's talking about it. So they're just like pretending to be best bros. It made me so nervous of Kit the whole time. I'm going to tell you what I thought was going to happen. I was very anxious. This is one of my biggest struggles, is this whole book made me very anxious, because there are way too many shoes in the air for 90% of the book. And I knew once I met the rebellion, I was like, first of all, they're going to have a nice chat. Get the out of here with that. You guys are chatting about. And number two, like, the rebellion. Number two, if they're going to hold the royal family hostage, the only people you have relationships with, that you're friends with, is the royal family. So you cannot even, you're picking a side. You are very much saying either the princes, right? Or you're saying the rebellion, or we need a different approach. I knew they just slotted her in too easy. Oh, we've been waiting for you.
Oh, yeah.
Everything about that gave me anxiety. And then you tee up to her even pushing these relationships forward, holding all these cards close to the chest. I like the anxiety of knowing what I knew as a reader was high. I was like, I know too much. I want to know less, honestly. I want to know less until it's time to drop some shoes.
I felt bored or mid. And then once the rebellion storyline was brought in, and then you really start to see I don't want to use the word division yet between the brothers, but I think division between the brothers is a common. I got to feel like really anxious, and like I was just like, oh, why are we doing this? And this is actually a point that I really want to bring up right here at this point. Right here. Bring it up. Yes, there are two parts. There's just two areas of the book that I'm not even I don't blame the characters. I just don't like that they happened. It's not even that it made me enjoy the book less. I mean, maybe it did. When I read it, I groaned, which sounds creepy. But I was just like, oh, why are we going in this direction? There are 2 points. A, I did not care for the Blair storyline and the I'm not like other girls attitude from Peyton.
Yeah.
Did not love that. I mean, Blair was being a royal biatch, but I was like, why did we need this character for this? Why? The only reason I can think of is to contrast Blair and Peyton so that Peyton stands out as the female lead and Peyton gets to show off that she's not interested. They even go down to a point at the ball where she's like, I hate wearing heels. Is that necessary? Do we need to attack girly things? But
I see what you mean.
Yeah.
It just felt like it did feel like they were pushing the whole it almost felt like she was too good for everybody was the energy she gave off. Like she took the I'm not like other girls to like, I'm not like that. I'm not that. I'm not wearing green.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
I do see your point. I do think that the Blair Peyton thing was just kind of like to tee up, I guess, more animosity for her because she does have a couple power plays, especially in like the fighting scenarios. Like you do have to believe that people want her to die and that she's swerving death is almost what I think it was. It is
not enjoyable.
It just feels like a back seat from what I would expect from a fantasy to get the tried and true.
We have this
girls v. girls energy.
Exactly. We didn't need that. There are other books where this is slightly introduced, this dynamic, this girls versus girls dynamic, and then it's squashed quickly. And then they also come together to even be like supportive allies. I don't think that's happening in this book. How this book ends, I don't think Blair and Peyton are going to be allies at any level. But that bothered me. That it was like, why was that choice made to have that in this book?
Well, and it just felt like the only thing I can think of is, and they don't tell you until the very end, which I think might have changed my perspective, is that there wasn't really a reason for her to hate her.
No.
Until the very end when she makes it clear that it's just kind of like a
prejudice.
Stereotype. Thank you, a prejudice. Yeah. I think that they tell you at the end of the book that it's her prejudice against her being like from Lou Alley and being pretty much a mundane and nothing.
Right.
I think that is the purpose, but the way they introduce it and play it throughout the book until that point is like a I want Kai and she's flirting with Kai. Like that's how it came across. Whereas I think if they had made it heavily about this stereotype and really driven home the stereotypes that are actually happening, it would have felt better for me.
I totally agree with you. I wish that had been clearer in the beginning, and then it wouldn't have felt like you have this girl that's more stereotypically a girl lead. I don't even know if that's the word I want to use, but that you just wouldn't have the dynamic
stereotype feminism almost.
Yes. I did not appreciate that. So I totally agree with you. And my other thing that I have discovered I really don't like, which does shock me, because I typically really do love a good love triangle. I love the inks. I love it. I do not like it when it's two brothers because that's just too much fallout. It's just, no thanks.
I said, I think my quote was, she really going to do a brother love triangle?
She is.
We're just going for it. Especially with them not talking about it. It would have almost been different if they'd have been like, you play your hand, I play my hand. A competition of it even. It was just like, I kept waiting for the shoe to drop with the rebellion. And honestly, I kept waiting for the shoe to drop with Kit. I kept thinking I thought when they were doing like the tunnels and he was showing her the tunnel, I genuinely thought he was baiting her.
Oh, I can see
that he was
shopping her.
Him and his dad were. I would have ate that up too. That's what I was anxious for. And then when it comes out and he's just betrayed, it does make me sad for him. But low key, this feels like a Joker villain arc story.
It does.
My dad's dead. She betrayed me. I'll never love again. I felt like I watched a villain story get created.
Right, which sometimes is highly entertaining. In this book, it was not highly entertaining. I honestly, my heart broke for him because I was like, I even think there's a line in the book, grief changes people. Mm-hmm. And then I was almost like, well, what happened? Are we supposed to be thinking now what happened to the dad to make the dad this way? Like, are we going to get a backstory in book 2 about the dad's past and grief? Like, is that what they're trying to show us with Kit? Like, grief?
They're trying to justify the witch hunt that's going to follow.
Makes sense. Yeah.
Like, so now Kit hates her.
Right.
Kit, every little needle she moved of him reconsidering what it meant to lead his people, who his people were, what he thought of Ordinaries, right? All of that is wiped away. And in my opinion, like I said, in my opinion, they are now justifying exactly who Kit is going to be, which is going to be a real bad person.
Yeah, it's going to be like Dad 2.0, but worse, because there is no fury like a lover scorned, apparently, even though I don't, yeah.
And it's just like, okay, I had a hard time too justifying these as morally gray characters that I liked.
Oh, okay. So tell me more about that.
Kai, right?
Mm-hmm.
Knows exactly who he is, what he's doing. He spares children. Thanks for that. But other than that, right. And sends them to in reality. If this was a different book, your quote unquote villain would have some sort of better redemption than that,
mm-hmm.
or wouldn't know what was happening, or had a plan to correct their father. You know what I mean?
Yes.
There is zero strat here on Kai's end of doing the wrong thing, knowing he's doing the wrong thing. My point is that he's not morally dark enough for him to be like even the like touch her and die kind of vibe I'm into, right? Not even dark enough.
No.
But we certainly don't have that shining light at the end of the tunnel. So I found him somewhat lacking outside of his feelings for her are pretty much the only like male character energy he gave me. Then you have Kit, who still seeks out and idolizes his father. Watching and having the relationship he does with his brother, there is no way.
No. How is that okay? How can you still defend your parents when that is happening?
And seek them out. And then when he dies, honestly, the fact that Kit is upset, or not Kit, the fact that Kai was upset, I was like, really?
Right. Like you wouldn't be, which I think is what we might get in book 2, where he gets a moment to process maybe, and he's going to be like, oh, actually, like, I had all these bent up feelings, understandably so, and I'm not that upset, like good riddance, but maybe he just is conditioned to feel like he can't feel like good riddance. Maybe that's his character arc we're going to get in book 2, and maybe we'll get more from Kai. But I agree with you. It's like, why do you keep doing this if it beats you up so much? And there's no, I mean, why didn't the brothers band together to overthrow the king? 2 against 1. They both have powers.
Yeah.
They could have been like, this is ridiculous.
It just seems like they saw the flaws in the dad. One literally gets tortured by him, and they just think, yeah, we're just going to see this out.
Right, exactly. Oh, this is fine. And he, yeah.
So my initial thought, even from the beginning, was I was going to have a very hard time forgiving Kai and liking him as a person, as a being, right?
Okay.
I felt just like a lack of trust most of the time. I didn't trust Adina until she died.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I'm rubbing off on you. The no trust. Yeah.
And then I cried.
Me too, because that was heartbreaking. And like the way, it was heartbreaking. That was very sad.
Awful. Like I sat and saw, and this was my first audiobook too, which I think is important to know.
Yes, I agree.
It's my first audiobook ever. And I'm just like sitting crying with like headphones.
Oh,
just like this.
I didn't like that either. That was so messed up.
He took her last family. That was oof.
Oh, we gotta talk about that. We gotta talk about that. Like I said, spoiler alert, wasn't the king.
The fact that it was Kai and that she blacked it out this whole time was honestly shocking to me too. I was like, wait a minute.
Right? She just
you just didn't remember. You just pictured the king.
Which I think I think there might be some truth in real life from that. Sometimes people can go through really traumatic events and for like their mind.
Oh yeah.
I think there's some truth in that, maybe in real life, but it was pretty like, you were like flirting and touching and dancing and no kissing at all. No spice.
There wasn't a kiss
at all. No.
I thought there was a kiss towards the end.
Really close, and then they were interrupted in the gardens, right? With the flowers and everything.
Yeah, that's where I was thinking too. Okay.
Yes. They like get really close, but they don't really. But all these things.
I want to lick you.
And all these things, and you just don't remember until all of a sudden, like, oh my goodness, I just can't imagine how she felt. Can't imagine.
Okay. I knew the king knew who she was. The second that he said, "Oh, your dad," I was like, "Well, she knows you're ordinary now. Now he's just toying with you." Here's what I thought was going to happen, actually, when we got to that last trial. I did not think it was going to be Adina at the end. What I thought, for some reason, the way I interpreted what the competition was, is I didn't think there was going to be one criminal. I thought they each were going to stumble upon a criminal, and the first one to take down their criminal was going to make it.
Oh, okay.
So I misunderstood that. So give me that. But when I realized what happened, I really thought the criminal was going to be Peyton. And he was going to out. Like, I thought it was going to be Kai and Peyton face to face. Him realizing she's a criminal and he has to kill her. And the king being like, she's been an ordinary all along. Again, I wrote a different book in my head. I was ready for a lot different twists and turns.
You could have rewritten this book and there would have been like, which I do think in a way is happening. We just got a little bit of a delay because now he does have to go find her. But that drama in that moment, could have been written differently. I do think though, like I said, like from that last trial, like rebellion on is where I started being like, okay. Yeah. Okay. Like, where are we headed? I think really, and maybe it's the audiobook. I actually want your opinion because you've listened to audiobooks. Mm-hmm. Okay. Yes. How did you feel about the female voice actor? Because I felt like the "I'm not like other girls" was emphasized through the audiobook, if that makes sense. Like, I wonder if I would have felt differently if I would have read it, because the way her voice was almost is what sold that, like, I'm too good for you. I'm too... Interesting. That was my takeaway feeling. Interesting. Okay, maybe, because I can think of, there are audiobooks where I absolutely love the voice actors. If anyone ever wants to listen to the audiobook of Belladonna, it's fantastic. Sidna, the actor, does a great job. But then there are audiobooks where I so struggled with the female lead character. I didn't struggle. I didn't think in my mind, like, oh, I really dislike the way her voice sounds, which sounds mean to say. I didn't think for this book, but now I'm wondering, because a lot of my notes are, oh, I really am struggling with this "I'm not like other girls" energy. Maybe it was emphasized by the voice actor's voice. And if I had read it, it would be different. Maybe. That's what I wonder, is because, like, I loved the guy who did Kai's voice. I thought he did a fantastic job. I did really enjoy listening to, like, a male lead voice. I just felt like there were two pieces I struggled with in audiobook. It was one that I felt like it emphasized, like, it's not even like just that I'm like not like other girls. It's also that just like too good energy. Yeah. Like, almost like she was better than everybody is kind of the energy I got from her the whole time. And the second piece was when they would do each other's voices. So, like, the male lead doing her voice or female lead doing his voice talking. I always felt like they were mocking each other. Like, it was like, you go out and do it. Like, that's like in my head how I heard it. And I was like, you guys are just bullying each other. But not in a good way, because sometimes we enjoy that in books, but not the vibe. I had to, like, every time it would happen, like, accept in my mind, just be like, this is just them doing the voice, not meaning anything. I struggled with tone, I think. Oh, that makes sense. Okay, that makes total sense. I could see that. And it is funny when they talk like they're the other person. It's like you have both the voice actors. Why don't you just have him voice his parts? That's actually all audiobooks do that. And that's a really good question. Why do you not just... Yeah, you could edit that. You could. You totally could. Could. That's the only piece I don't get. Because I'm like, just have the man do all the man voices and have the chick do all the chick voices, or whatever works for your story, right? Right. But it just sounds like they're making fun of each other. Like, they're like he's like, I'll get the pizza. I'll get the pizza. Like, that's not what I heard. They're like putting on, and the way they have to do it too, like when it's more rough. Anyways, that's my petition to audiobook, because it was really efficient, and I do want to do it again. I'm just scared that it's influencing how I feel about things. Well, maybe if you had time, you could go back and read the physical book and see if it changes. But from my perspective, you're like, okay, I'm gonna be honest with you, Sheridan. That's not happening.
I ended up downloading the audiobook because I will say that before this, I read a really great 5-star read. And so I was like kind of in a slump and I had to read this book. And I thought this was going to be like the slump buster. Yeah. And I was struggling to like start reading it. So at like 40 pages, I was like, today's the day I get an audiobook. I've got 2 things else to call out.
Okay, perfect.
Okay, two takeaways though that again, I think we talk about this a lot with books, which is showing me that somebody's powerful or something versus telling me. And here's the difference right here is they told me nonstop that Kai was this fantastic enforcer, that he's strong, he's the best. For the best enforcer in all the land, he sure got his handed to him a lot.
Right?
Like, I would say like 70% of the fights he entered, he was getting his ass handed to him.
Right.
I was like, buddy, maybe you need some new training partners.
Right. I don't believe you.
You're just beating Kit, really.
Yes.
Yeah. The second was that for them selling me that she was so observant. She was so observant. She ran into people at least 4 or 5 times.
Oh my gosh,
stumbled
that's
into
so
them,
true.
or missteps, or you know what I mean. She was very clumsy. If you were that observant, you'd be like, "There's a rock there. There's a ledge there. There's a human there."
Right. That's such a good point. Because have you ever seen the show Sherlock?
No.
Okay, well, in the show, Sherlock basically does what she does. She looks at their clothes, their shoes, their appearance to like deduce things about them. So I basically was like, she's trying to be Sherlock Holmes right now, but she keeps not.
Yeah, which is fine. Like I said, like that's fine, but you have to show me in your actions. It's hard for me to believe you're getting your handed to you all the time, and that you're this observant, and you're falling and running into people, and all around being unobservant.
Right. No, that's a really valid point. I wrote that down too. Like something like that too. I was like, I don't really think she's selling this psychic bit. I don't think that this, well, and she wasn't, because the king at the end does say, I knew you were a fraud. I knew you were faking.
Well, I think he knew she was faking because of her dad. Like he knew that I think he knew about the rebellion, but didn't he imply he also knew about her? Or am I remembering that wrong?
I think so, because he does say, and he does. He's the one that tells her Kai was her dad. So he knows who her dad was. And he does figure that out.
This is with all romance books, I feel like.
True. Okay, I'm ready.
I am putting out a flag that says, if one more male lead in any genre says, my favorite color is the color of your eyes.
Oh, I love that part. I'm sorry. I ate that up. I loved it.
You're not done with it?
Amazing. No, I'll always take it. I think it's gorgeous. And
you know,
I actually wrote that down.
Okay. All right. Well, as long as you're happy.
Yeah.
I was just like, my favorite color is blue.
Right. That's so funny. No, I actually wrote that down as like something I really liked about them.
We're so different.
I thought that was really super romantic.
It's funny though, because people do talk about Kai as being like the most romantic. So I guess because that's like more your alley is like the romance, whereas mine is like I like romance, but I like it with banter and I like it to be packaged a certain way.
Yeah.
Because I would like if somebody told me brown was their favorite color, I'd be yeah, right. Yeah, right, bitch.
Well, but what if they were like, because it's like the shade of brown of your eyes.
If they started explaining hazelnuts to me and shit, I'd be like, what?
You just don't like hazelnut either. But hazelnut's delicious and it's fantastic.
Your eye is the shade of Buckeyes. If they've been sitting in the sun, cast in the night light.
Okay, well, because they're not saying that. They're not going to say that. They're going to find other ways to describe the shade of brown of your eyes.
Mm-hmm. They're going to also describe my scent.
Yes.
She smells like rose petals mixed with lilac and eucalyptus and a splash of lemon if I had a fucking finger on it.
I'm going to put my riz on you. I'm going to try to riz you up. Actually, this is something that we have a mutual friend we've actually talked about in real life. Like, not to get creepy on the podcast. You actually have a very distinct just smell that it smells really good. Like, you naturally just smell very good. Like, you actually do have a very good scent. All the years I've known you, you just smell really nice without any perfume. So good for you. Good for you.
Maybe I'm like a shifter deep down and I just have good pheromones. Wouldn't that be sick?
Maybe. That
like somebody's going to show up one day and be like, you're
Yo, what was it?
The Lost Wild Boy.
Oh, there you go. So there you go. Yes. See, so it happens in the romance books. But what I was going to say is I actually did find Kai extremely romantic. The positive things I wrote down for this book, I was like, ooh, I like Kai. I definitely felt he pined for her as well.
Yes.
I liked when he got jealous. I liked when he was like, what's wrong with me? I'm like obsessed with this woman. I loved the dance.
Only she breaks my mask.
Only she breaks my mask. Oh, I'm a simple woman. I know what I like, and I love that.
Just a woman.
I'm a simple woman, and I also loved when he was like, she was like, well, would you matter if all your soldiers died or something like that? And then he'd be like, no, because they don't matter, but you do. And I was like,
that was good. That one was good.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was like the main, I think, theme that I've seen consistently, though, is that people find Kai very romantic.
I can see it, and I agree. But she killed her dad. But he didn't want to. And he was
that's like he had in depth described how he like threw up the first child and stuff. But again, it would be different if he was working on something to change the future, to change the kingdom. It just seems to me like her hating him would make a lot more sense to me. Because what did they? They're not trying. There's no goal.
Right. That's true.
Maintain.
That's very true.
I said I can appreciate that Kai is romantic.
Full circle back. He was very romantic.
Adina dying was not on my bingo card. Did not see that coming. And then I said, the way I switch it after that death, because initially I was like, don't let the rebellion in. What are you doing? You're trusting all these randoms and pretending you have a life goal. And then when when her friend died, I was like, take him out.
Get him.
Honestly, go after him. I don't care.
Off the earth, yes.
I switch hit, and then the rebellion betrayed her, and I was like, God damn it, here again.
I thought was super interesting because all sides betray her. So I was like, her
running made the most sense.
Exactly. So I was like, okay, I think now I see where they're setting this up, and I am invested. I am intrigued now to know because both sides betray her. When Adina died, oh my goodness! Again, we talked about this, emotionally traumatizing. It was terrible. And then the whiplash of also the rebellion betraying her is. I am interested to see where this goes.
Yeah, I think I just I need to know what happens. So are you ready to dive into ratings? So you want to talk about this?
Yeah. All right. I'm gonna rate this book like a 3. And it's all because of Kai.
Yeah.
Like 3 stars, maybe 3.5 for him, for his romance. 3,
I'm actually teetering between like a 2.75 and a 3.
Ooh, okay, that might be the lowest rating for our podcast trajectory to this point. I'm really sorry. It's okay.
Listen, I can, when we say these things, this is just me approaching a story and what worked and didn't work for me. It's not to say that other people aren't entitled to absolutely love this book. And it's not to say it's about the writer. It's just, I felt, like I said, I'm having a hard time rooting for their love story because even while he's so romantic, like what does it matter? You killed her dad and have no goals to change the kingdom, and now you're hunting her?
I think that's where we're going in book 2. I think his goal is going to be to change the kingdom. I think that's where we're going. I think that's what we're meant to believe we're going to.
I don't know. I think that they're I think that the way that they show Kai and Kit after everything happens really implies that they're both mourning their father, which is just, again, shocking to me. So I think they're actually going to keep going down. We're going to head down the hill first, maybe book 3.
I have a question for you. So for listeners that have listened to this episode as well as our Veiled Kingdom episode, if you've not read the Veiled Kingdom, please skip until a few minutes ahead. But if you have read both, what is the difference in your feelings between that ending where his dad sends him after her and this ending where his brother sends him after her?
Oh, that's good. Okay. I think the big difference is you have a clear enemy and a good guy in both of them, in my personal opinion, right? You have a clear enemy and a clear good guy, right? Doing the right thing might even be a better way to put it. And one is trying to perpetuate like the right thing, even if they have to make bad decisions to do the right thing. And the other hand, I think you have bad people with or bad kingdoms running with some good intentions, but really no good intention action. Like there's no action behind these alleged good people. What does he do other than let the children go? And even then to their death, to a different death.
True. Very true.
But realistically, the rebellion did what the rebellion would do, right?
Yeah.
They would threaten the leaders.
True.
That's just common sense. That's just 101. Her getting played by them is on her.
Yeah, that's very true. You want to know something crazy I just realized, which is kind of like a red flag for myself? Like, this is a red flag I just discovered. So you are 100% correct. In the Veiled Kingdom, the male lead's dad is technically on the right side. He is on the rebellion side. He is the good guy. They are the good people.
He's just doing it bad. But the younger generations are trying to do it better. Yes. I think that's important.
Yes, agreed. And we swap. Kai is doing bad things for a bad guy. And he's trying. Yeah, there's some
he's not trying anything. He's just doing.
True. He's not trying. Okay.
So that was my whole problem with his character. That was literally it. I liked him, but if they had given me literally anything there to be like, wow, okay, he's actually a good guy. I didn't have
Okay, so my red flag, because I completely agree with everything you said, and I was like, who cares? He wasn't trying to do it. He's romantic. He likes the shade of her eyes. He's pining.
I think what it all comes down to is like even if you go in, let's take a dark romance male lead, right? Or a heavily morally gray male lead. Let's take an S.J. Tilly book, right? Mm-hmm. They're gonna be still doing things in a romantic way that are bad, but are all for her. So if that was a dark romance or something, when Kai went to go get her, he'd be taking her back and like imprisoning her as his. You know what I mean? He would be doubling down on his ordinary girl protection. He would not be hunting her down for his brother to go to jail.
So true. You are right. You were 1,000% right. You were 1,000% right. I agree with every single one of those statements. All right. So how do we rate this in spice?
Honestly, there's nine. There's
like 9 amount of
There's actually a moldy spice, a moldy penne, just rotting away on the floor. That's how lack of spice there was. Which again is fine. I think if you deal with the YA and there's low spice, that is fine.
Right.
It just felt like we were dancing in circles, the same circle over and over and over again.
Mm-hmm. This has like a -5 spice, like a negative. It's that far into the no spice, which again, I think it is a YA book, so that's fine. It is what it is. I do really want to know now what happens in Reckless, but I would not say this was my favorite book I've read for a while. Yeah. I did really enjoy Kai. All of my stars are because of Kai.
Yeah, I agree. I would just like to see better formed characters, I think, out of both of them through this character arc. I'd like to look back and say, well, they just were getting developed, right?
Which that could be true.
Yeah.
Could be true.
So here's hoping.
Here's hoping. Yeah, if you disagree with us, let us know your thoughts in the comments.
Tell us what you rated this. What stars would you give this? And if you've read, some of the books that we compared to, let us know your thoughts. Do you feel the same? Is he morally gray enough for you?
Yeah. Right. Yes.
Because that's genuinely what I think it all comes down to, right? Like if I had to scale Kai, he's not golden retriever enough, contemporary good, and he's not dark enough, bad guy good. So
that's very true.
He's just a good old fashioned platonic man.
He's just a romantic man. Mm-hmm. He is a swoon-worthy man who is extremely romantic. Okay. Swooning. Swoon. Watch me swoon. If you swooned for Kai, let us know in the comments.
Yes. And if you like what you heard, join us again next week. We will be covering Reckless. So we're going to be picking up right where we left off here. Make sure to like, subscribe, follow us. We're everywhere. We're on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. We're in your kitchen. I'm just
Well, thank you so much for hanging out with us. See you next time and cheers.
Cheers.